Hi, world, and hello, Katie.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, very good. I'm trying to pull up the chat right now. Then
I'm
my
so
screen just went
excited that
blank.
we're back.
Yeah, where have you been?
I don't know. I've been stuck in drama land. What have you been doing?
I see. I've actually been stuck in drama land myself. Actually,
Like
not
never
quite the
ending.
not quite the the same thing. But why don't you tell people what you've been talking about here lately? While I try to pull the screen back up.
Oh, I mean, for the people that are on my channel that are watching from my channel, they know that I have been covering a lot of beauty blogger drama related to vitamins and James Charles, and it's been like such a mess. Thankfully, it's over for the most part, so I don't have to talk about it anymore, which I'm really happy. I don't have to talk about it anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Who
fighting
won the
over
beauty war?
vitamins. Well, so far it looks like James Charles won because Tati was exposed for being a liar, and she said that she wasn't exposing him as a sexual predator, and she was using all of those homophobic like gay men are trying to trick straight men into being gay. You know that stereotype they love to use.
Well, I
She was using that. Huh?
said, well, there not nothing.
There
I was
are
going to make a
some.
joke where there could be something. Yeah, there are some. I think that.
There are.
Well, yeah, I'm going to bite my tongue on that. Go ahead.
But yeah, so she was like she was exposed as lying for the most part. It all came down to like she was pissed off at him because he didn't support her vitamins, and he did a which are snake oil, by the way. And that's how I got sucked in because I don't like snake oil.
You don't. I thought
I don't.
that was your thing. Must be mistaking you
Well,
for
I
somebody
mean,
else.
I that's what I write about. I'm just saying, like, I don't like people that sell snake oil.
Okay. Dave, they're saying that my audio sounds off. Can you not? Is this the microphone that I'm using? No, they said
Fine.
mine is. Yeah, Katie's is fine. Yeah, you sound fine,
Can
Katie.
you hear me
Let
good?
me. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what's going on, guys, in the audience, but they sound fine to me. Can you be more specific about Kyle's mic?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
You sound fine to me.
Okay. Okay.
They said
Um.
we saw my channel says it sounds fine.
Oh, okay.
It's
Cool.
slightly loud.
Maybe it was
Oh, Kyle's is
maybe it was just one
slightly
or two
louder
people.
than Katie's.
I'll start talking like this then.
Hello, hi, how are you?
NonSequitur ASMR. Okay. Um. What we've got coming up for the week is tomorrow. I'll be joined, of course, by Shannon Q. We're going to be doing Q&K again, where you can call in, take your questions. We might actually have the lines open tonight and let you guys call in. And if you have any questions for Katie and I, maybe we'll take one or two of those as we get towards the end of the show. On Friday, I'm super excited because we have a furry porn star that is coming to talk about their work and the furry porn industry. And if you've never heard of that, then yes, there is a thriving furry porn industry. I've been doing a lot of research for Friday's show, and I can tell you that there's quite the thriving furry community.
Are these
Um,
are these people that like are these the people that like dress up like furries, and is that
yes,
them?
yes.
Oh my
Most
god.
of the most of the porn that I've seen, and none of this is me mocking furries by any means. I think furries are the ones that I've met are wonderful people. They just like something different, and that's completely fine. But these furries. Usually, they have the full costume going on, and like the private area is cut out. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah. From what I've seen, anyway.
interesting.
From what I've seen,
Okay.
anyway. So we're going to talk about that on Friday and find out all about the furry porn industry. And then on Saturday, we have Saturday Night Fights. Reds Rhetoric will be returning to Saturday on Saturday, and he will be taking on Ebon Kim, a new flat earther. If you know who that is. And then on Sunday, Jimmy and I will be joined by Holy Kool-Aid, and we'll be taking your calls for Sunday Fun Day. And then, I promise you guys, on Monday, we will talk about the climate change. The climate change is Monday. So, Scotty, Scotty says, what if I have an unrelated 5G question for Katie? You can call in and ask. Yeah, you can call in and ask. Okay. Let's go to.
I think I figured it out. My mic was on the wrong mic.
Oh, it was?
Is that
okay?
I think that's
if it was,
okay.
you'll have to refresh your browser so that it can pick that up.
Can you not hear me? Oh God, hold on.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Now I can't hear anything.
It just refresh.
Refresh.
Hello?
Refresh your browser.
Oh, I got it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So Dave, let's go into the smoking nun. Nonsense news. Let me pull it up on my end. Okay. So our first story we're going to talk about is a lady in I believe it was Colombia. She got her head stuck in the gate of her neighbor's house for 5 hours trying to spy on her neighbors. Ever eavesdropped on a conversation and found herself in a compromising position. A Colombian woman tried to spy on her neighbors to see if they were home, and it did not go according to plan. She got her head stuck in the gate for 5 hours, and they had to call police and firefighters to help her. Katie, you ever lived in an apartment and heard anything coming from the neighbors at nighttime? You know, some boom boom going on.
Yeah.
Have you ever went outside and stood outside their window to see if you could get a peep?
Never.
Is that weird?
Huh?
Is that weird? I'm just joking.
To do that?
I've never done that either.
No.
I've never done that either. I'm just joking.
Yeah. Usually
well,
when I hear that kind of stuff, I would just turn up my radio louder or whatever, or the TV, or whatever I'm doing, so I don't have to hear it.
Yeah. So this lady heard this going on and poked her head into their fence and got her head stuck for 5 hours.
5 hours.
I don't know. I thought that was so funny. I thought that was great. Okay.
So she
let's go to the next story.
To listen to boom boom.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh
now this is a story about just don't be stupid. Okay. Man arrested after giving officers a fake name while wearing a lanyard with his real name. Authorities arrested a man in Nebraska on suspicion of false reporting after he tried to give police a fake name despite wearing a lanyard with his real name on it. At around 10:30 p.m., Lincoln police responded to reports of a domestic assault at a home. Before officers headed to the scene, they were made aware that they would be contacting a 25-year-old suspect named Markel Toner, who had been arrested with 2 warrants. When officers arrived, they found a man matching Tony's description sitting in a vehicle outside the home. An officer approached the man asking for his name. The man allegedly told officers his name was D'Angelo Towns, but the officers said they saw a lanyard around the man's neck with his real name, Markel Towner. Now, not only did he get the police called on him, right, and the person that called the police on him told them what his name was. So the police knew going to talk to this suspect what his name was. But he also had his work ID on a lanyard with his name on it and tried to tell them a completely fake name.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid.
I feel like they always do that. They're like, no, my name is Steve. My name is Steve.
Now, I this next story I looked into. I thought it sounded like there's a lot of talk between the vegan camps and the non-vegan camps about health benefits and things like that. And so when I first saw this headline, I thought it may be a fake story. And so I looked it up, and this was carried on several different mainstream news sites. It was the Mirror, the Telegram, the Wall Street Journal, quite a few of these. So this is a real story. Dave, you can go to the next one. And it's vegan parents are in prison for starving their child, and that she narrowly escapes death.
That doesn't surprise me. There are so many of these stories in the news.
This article says the parents chose to only serve vegan food to their 1.5-year-old child. Now they are both sentenced to jail for bodily harm. There has been worrying information about the parents' ideological foundation of people's need for food, writes the district court in the verdict. The child ended up in an irresponsible nutritional composition with life-threatening complaints at the emergency department of the Children's Hospital in Gothenburg. The little child, according to Swedish doctors, has narrowly escaped death. According to the vegan parents of the severely malnourished child, yes, all other food is poison. They acknowledged that their child had contracted a vitamin deficiency, but thought they could compensate for the long-term deficiency by hugging the child and making her smile. God.
So, yeah, vegan children can develop vitamin deficiencies, often in like vitamin D, vitamin B, vitamin iron, magnesium. There's a lot of different vitamins you just don't get in a plant-based, and they don't typically get enough protein, which is a huge issue, along with calcium. So this actually doesn't surprise me. There's typically a story like this all the time, but the hugging, that's new.
Yeah. Now it says here that it's that the parents are sentenced to 3 months imprisonment for causing bodily injury. However, in the judgment, the district court clarifies that the goal is about malnutrition and not that the parents wanted to serve vegan food. And that, to me, I think is an important point, because there's nothing wrong with being vegan if that's what you want to be. Nothing wrong with that at all. The emphasis needs to be put on the child's malnutrition, and that if you are an adult and able to make the decision that you want to be vegan, or you're raising a child that you also want to serve vegan food, there has to be some supplementation in those vitamins and nutrients that they're not going to be able to get when it's just a vegan-based diet. And I think that's important to, especially a child that's growing. That demands a lot more.
Right. There's a lot more supplementing you need with protein and lots of vitamins, as evidenced
my son lives on a plant-based diet just because of his health. He's on a formula that's vegan, but it's completely it's a completely balanced formula. So there's ways that you can get like all of the micronutrients and all of the nutrition without having meat. That's why like vegan parents really should be working with their child's pediatrician and a nutritionist to make sure that the child is getting all of the different vitamins. We do that. We have a nutritionist that helps us to make sure that he doesn't lack in all of them, and he takes different supplements that he's not getting enough of in his food.
Yeah. That's what I want. I just wanted to take away from this to be too that this was a story about mainly of the parents and the malnutrition thing, not the vegan thing. So don't get the wrong idea. I'm not in any way condemning people who choose to be vegan. And I tell people this all the time. I'm a complete hypocrite when it comes to this, because I don't in any way approve of the way animals are treated in processing food and that sort of thing. And I shouldn't support that, but it's just one of those things where I can fully admit that I'm a hypocrite in that area, because if my actions reflected my feelings about that industry, I would definitely be vegan myself. So
you're personalizing what you think an animal should be treated and how they if you actually spend time and learn about the agricultural side of it, you'll realize that what we think the average person thinks a cow needs and what a cow actually needs are very different. And there's a lot of misinformation in the vegan world about animal cruelty and about like how animals are cared for.
I would have to disagree. I would have to disagree wholeheartedly on that with you, because I've seen a documentary, like several documentaries on the food industry and the way that it's carried out, and I think that in a lot of cases there it is gross animal cruelty.
Who's making the documentaries though? That's the thing.
I couldn't tell you, but there. I mean, like, well, here's the one thing. Like in New Jersey, there was a case that went to the New Jersey Supreme Court about gestation crates for pigs. Now, if you know anything about pigs, pigs are very similar in the way that they feel and think like humans. They're very closely related in terms of their cognitive ability, and they were trying to set up these gestation cages where the pig couldn't turn around. The pig had to stay in a forward-facing position, and that's just outrageous to me. Like, I cannot fathom in any sense that would be okay, or even anything that had to be argued about. That's ridiculous. So I mean, that to me is cruelty. That's cruel. You know, if a pig can't turn around, that's right.
Awful. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that there's a lot of misinformation about what we think is cruel versus what is actually cruel.
Maybe so, but I do think it goes on. So yeah, if you're a vegan, good for you. I fully support that, and wish that I had the dedication that you guys do, and the strength, because every time I smell bacon, I just crumble. So next story. This is an interesting story. A troublemaker. This is karma right here. This is karma. A troublemaker tries to strangle a fellow passenger but dies shortly after. It was a terrifying flight for the passengers of a Russian scheduled flight from Moscow to Simferopol, located in Crimea. After a plane took off, a passenger went completely insane. The man tried to strangle a female passenger, threatened the crew, and called out that everyone was going to die. The deranged passenger was seriously ill. The pilots decided to fly directly back to Moscow, where the man died almost immediately upon arrival. The flight had just left the airport in Moscow when a passenger went crazy. Eyewitnesses reported that the passengers immediately panicked and by shouting on the plane, and the pilots were notified. The passenger told everyone they were going to die, that the pilots had fallen asleep, and that the plane was going to crash. Then the man tried to strangle a female passenger. He also struck another passenger with a cell phone. Now, in the craziness of all of this, the passengers got together and grabbed him, subdued him, and tied him to a chair in the plane, or a seat in the plane. After the flight had returned to Moscow, where police and paramedics were ready, the drama had not ended. After all, the man was badly injured during the brawl on board, and when doctors entered the plane to provide first aid, they couldn't save the man. According to the initial results of the investigation, the 32-year-old troublemaker died of acute cardiac arrest. So the passengers went to subdue him. I guess he got injured in the, trying to restrain him. He was tied to a seat and died of cardiac arrest before the plane crashed. Or not crashed, excuse me. The plane landed in Moscow.
So he tried to strangle a passenger, and then they got...
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think he just went crazy. He tried to strangle a female passenger. He hit somebody in the head with a cell phone, and then told everybody that the pilots had fallen asleep and the plane was going to crash. So that, of course, made everyone freak out. And I think that a couple of the passengers rose up, got him, tied him to a seat, and I guess in his excitement, it was too much for him, and he died of. He could have been on drugs, yeah. Sweet Heathen could very well have been. Sound like
really
most likely
sad,
he was.
Actually.
Yeah. Well.
Or mentally. Well, he could have been mentally ill too. There's that.
Well, if he actually having some kind of cardiac arrest. If it's a heart attack, based on what heart attacks and cardiovascular accidents, i.e. strokes, are, they're very much the same kind of thing. You could have had a stroke coincident with it that kind of messed his head up too. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
It's very possible. All right, next story. This one's this is a double whammy here. And I think this is your Florida story, Katie. Man allegedly hiding drugs in his rectum accidentally shoots himself in the testicles. A felon shot himself in the testicles and tried to hide the weapon while storing drugs in his anus, a report said Wednesday. Cameron Wilson was carrying a pistol in his front pocket while in Kashmir apartment when the firearm accidentally discharged and pierced his groin and thigh. Wilson, who is a 13-time convicted felon, told his girlfriend to get rid of the weapon before going to the hospital. In the hospital, a balloon of marijuana slipped out of his ass while a doctor was operating on him and the gunshot wound. After he was being processed at the Justice Center, Wilson was strip searched, and yet another balloon of marijuana slipped from his ass. And he was being held on $110,000 bail. How great is that?
How did he accidentally shoot himself in the testicles? I was like,
I don't know.
Literally reading
it doesn't say. It just said it dislodged in his pocket.
This kind of story makes me really consider where my weed comes from.
Well, listen. As somebody who has been in prison, it comes in many different ways, but that's probably the most popular way is, and also like when we would have shakedowns, where you would, because like prison is as corrupt as anything else. Like there are guards who are dirty, just like there is, in the real world with police. There's always a couple, and we would always get a heads up when a shakedown was planned. And so when that heads up came, everybody would flood back to their dorm and their bunk and their locker and pull out like whatever contraband they had. And then you would just see a mass exodus to the bathroom, and you knew what was happening. They were all plugging and making sure that when the shakedown came through, that you could never find anything. And I don't think there was maybe one or two times where we didn't get a heads up, and that happened, like that sort of opportunity to do that. But yeah, you just get they would take gloves. You wore gloves to clean up in the dorm, so there was always boxes of gloves everywhere, and they would just pull off a finger of the glove, stuff whatever, weed, marijuana, whatever you had in there, and then there it goes.
Oh.
Yeah. Good times.
I've heard other times too where they swallow it. Like,
you can do that. That's a lot more dangerous though, because if that ruptures or yeah. And to me, weed or tobacco. Believe it or not, tobacco was the main thing that people were. They called it suitcasing in prison. That's the term used, suitcasing. Tobacco was the main thing that was suitcase, because that was the most prevalent thing. That was the most expensive thing on the prison compound, because you couldn't get the same charge for having tobacco that you could if you had weed. And almost everybody there smoked. No. That's why you would suitcase it when you get a shakedown. Because
so if you can't smoke in prison, how do you smoke in prison?
Several different ways.
Tell me.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be too specific, because it still might be going on. So I don't want to, So yeah, exactly. But I don't want to, foil the plan. But anyway, there are many different ways that it can come in. I'll tell you off air. Just remind me.
Okay.
But there are several different ways that it does come in. But it does come in. there was never a shortage of anything to smoke while you're in there. And so you just got, if you got caught with it, you just got what was called a B16. Now that's a inside prison charge. It doesn't carry over to like the state or like the county. You can't get charged criminally for it. You only get charged inside the prison for it. And what that does is everybody there on prison works to get out. So you have a release date, right? And you can work there, and your job, the amount of days that you work, pulls back your release date. It makes you to where you can get released sooner. So for every day that you work, you get so many hours leading up to an early release, right? Now, what a B16 does, when you get a B16, you'll go before usually the captain and 2 lieutenants, and you'll tell them what happened, why you shouldn't be convicted of that. But if you're found guilty of the B16, it takes some of those days away. So you may have worked 30 days towards the release. B16 will come in and take half of those away. Now, while I was there for the year that I was there, I got probably 22 B16 charges.
Oh, so you were not kicking any habits. Got it.
No. Well, see, here's the thing though. When you're in there, you're so bored. Like there's nothing to do all day except, work out. And once you've worked out, literally there's nothing to do. You can read if you're not at your job. And the job that I had, I ran the store there. So it was only open certain times during the day. It was 3 hours total. And so I had a lot of free time. And just to, it sounds weird, and unless you've been in there, you can't understand it, but it passes the time because there's a certain thrill about waiting till the guard, goes and makes a round, and the exact location that you need to be in to roll it up. And the way we would like these things, this is the great part. They're so crafty in there. Okay, so we would take the shoes that the state issued shoes that you would get came with this very thin layer of like tissue paper that they were wrapped in. Now, the guy who would unload those from the place would get those and bring those back and sell those for whatever. But that's what you would use to roll. And you could use anything, but that's mainly what they would use to roll. So then you take a battery that you get for your radios, and you could buy however many batteries that you wanted. And you would pull off some pieces from a Brillo pad, like a scrubbing that you used to clean with. And you twist the Brillo pad very thin, and then you hold it on top of the battery and to the side of the battery, and that will heat up the middle of that Brillo pad to a like fiery red hot, and you just hold it up to your rolled cigarette, and you're good to go. Yeah, that we found all kind of ways. Another more dangerous way is like when with those a battery shortage there for a while, and so a guy took a roll of paper and a staple, and put the staple on the end of the paper and stuck it into the socket of the wall, and it sparked, and it caught the end of that paper on fire, and you just light it up like that and go on.
Wow.
Did you have to identify a guard? Yes. Every time the guards were coming, people would make a siren sound or say 12. And when you heard 12,
wouldn't it stink?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But you would there. It's strange because you had officers that was their, like they lived off of finding people smoking, right? So there were several doors into the dorms, and there was a back door, and a lot of people would go into the day room when the guard would leave. And there was one guard in particular that was famous for walking around the outside of the building and coming through that back door where nobody really usually comes in at, and catching people that way. But then you had guards that were just cool as hell. They understood, and they would walk out on purpose to give you time to do that. Because if you have to think about it, if you're a guard and you have to stick with a certain amount of people 12 hours a day, because the shifts ran from 6 to 6, that's a long day, and you want everybody to be as calm and happy as possible. So some guards understood that, and they would take breaks and walk out solely so people could do that, so they could smoke, get it out of their system. And nobody would give those guards any trouble because those guards were the most favorite guards. So when you had that guard, you don't fight when that guard is posted up. If you have a beef, you wait until it's another guard. So those guards were respected, and they never had any issues. So it's all about which side that you want to be on. Do you want to be a guard where people are going to try to give you like a hard time those 12 hours you're there, or do you want to be 12 hours there without any issues? And so that was sort of the give and take game that you had there. It's a fascinating place. And I will say this too. Remind me, and I'll tell you this off camera, but there's a lot that goes on there that you would be surprised at. I mean, a lot of juicy stuff between people who shouldn't be involved with inmates and people who are. And I was actually a lookout for one of those guards for about 2 months.
A female guard or like a
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's a crazy world, and you do things. Everything in prison is about what you can do to further your day unbothered, or to have an it's 3D chess all the time, because there's so many different elements that you have going after. And I will say, like, while I was there, I never got into a fight the entire time I was there. No one ever bothered me. I had a lot of people that I hung out with regularly. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, like, your position there is important too. I was the food guy. I was the canteen guy. I ran the store.
Sure.
So if you mess with me or whatever, you weren't going to get your extra stuff. And so I think that went a long way into that. But it's a fascinating place. Never go there, though, guys. Never go there.
I always I love watching those shows like Lockup. My husband hates it. Like, he's always like, I don't want to watch a bunch of like, bad guys. And my husband has siblings that have spent quite a bit of time in prison for drugs and stuff. So for him, it's just like, this is what my family does. I don't want to watch it, kind of stuff. Yeah. But I'm always like amazed. I think it's like a psychological experiment.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, some people, it breaks. I've seen that many times. I've seen a lot of people like lose their minds in there. I'm not a fan of solitary confinement at all, especially being there, because I've seen firsthand being in a place where you're isolated for a long period of time. I've seen what that does firsthand to people more than once. And I think solitary confinement is cruel and unusual punishment, and it should be gotten rid of. It's a horrible way to solve a problem, and it's an easy fix. And I think that the damage that it does is just it's outrageous. I've seen it many times. People go in, they'll have they have anger issues, but they have a good personality. When they come out, don't want to see anybody, don't want to talk to anybody. It takes a toll on your mindset, and I think that's horrible way to do people.
There was a documentary on this kid that was in New York that was like wrongfully convicted, and he spent like all this time in jail, and a long portion of that was in solitary confinement. And he ended up like getting out of prison, and he ultimately killed himself. Yeah,
it's not it's not a solution, and I don't know why this isn't being like I've said before. It's easy to put people in. A lot of times, or what I found, before I went to prison, I was one of those people that stereotyped prisoners. They were they're just bad people, and I didn't think much about them. And when I went there, I saw that a lot of these people are good people. They just got in a situation where they got caught doing something that I think a lot of people do, and they never had anybody tell them they could do better, or they've never had people behind them. They get stuck in this revolving door, because when you go there, you get a bill when you leave. I got a bill while I was leaving and got my clothes, and got charged $37 for every day that I was there. And you do the math on that for a year, and then you have so long to pay that back to the state, or you violate your probation and parole. And if you do that, then they come and they pick you up again and they put you in jail. And you accrue more days where you have to pay. And then when you're released, you have to pay not only what you didn't pay the first time, but what you didn't pay this time. And you'll go back into prison. That's why the majority of nonviolent offenders in prison are there for violations of their probation and parole. And a lot of that is monetary fines. But what can you do when you get out of prison and you have an F beside your name and there's a stereotype on you and nobody wants to hire you? And so the other thing is they go back to what they knew. They go back to selling drugs, and because they need the money, and they get caught selling drugs again.
And then there's not a lot of really good like reintegration programs and help for prisoners once they get out.
The support system after is it's a joke, really, to be honest with you.
I mean, like I said, my husband's brothers have been in and out of prison for as long as he's been an adult. When I started dating my husband, two of his brothers were in prison. They both were out of prison by the time we got married. I met one of the brothers for the very first time at our wedding. And then the other one, and he's been out since, but it's not like he's been on the up and up, if you know what I mean. Like he's still not like his whole life is stunted because he's been in and out of prison this whole time.
Yeah.
And he's an addict. And so it's like he gets out and he does okay, and then he gets back on whatever drugs it is, and then he does okay for a little while. He can't hold a job, and it's and he has a felony for not. Yeah.
And the thing with that is, and a big thing that I think we need to change is because with drugs, I had the same thing. I went for drugs, and never once was the cause of me going addressed. I was going for punishment, not for treatment. We need to in this country, we need to treat drugs as a medical issue, not a criminal issue. And if there was a means to address why the person was like, if you get caught for drugs, you should be evaluated and treated by a medical professional. Go to groups while you're in there, some sort of scheduled thing where you're actively trying to solve your addiction problem, and not putting someone in a cage for 23 hours a day and just letting them sit there because you're not addressing the addiction. And when they get out and they have all of this stress because they have to pay all of this money, they have somebody that's going to look over your shoulder for 2 years, that's going to pop in randomly and drug test you. And like for 2 years, I would, like, once a week, I didn't know what day he would come, but he would pop up just one day each week and drug test me to make sure I wasn't owning any kind of drugs. For the first year, I couldn't leave my house after 8 p.m. And I'd have to, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., you could leave and go do whatever. If I left the county, I had to let somebody know. I had to call him and tell him, hey, I'm just going to the movies, which is, in Guilford County. This is when I'm leaving. This is when I'll be back. Anytime I did that. So, I mean, like.
Did they have a monitor on you, like a radio monitor?
No, it was, I didn't have to wear a monitor, but I had to report. If I was leaving the county, I had to report where I was going, when I'd be back, and that sort of thing. So yeah, the system's broken, like, majorly. And
I know in the state of Minnesota, like, my dad worked for the Department of Corrections, actually, and he was tasked with doing he rolled out, like, the statistics. They do a program here where if you are arrested and it's part of your crime, whether it's theft or whatever is related to drugs or alcohol, you're mandated to go through treatment while you're incarcerated.
Well, that's good.
They started that and my dad actually implemented all of the quality metrics to make sure, and they saw a reduction in whatever.
Recidivism. Yeah, recidivism.
Yeah, recidivism. Yeah, for them that go through it.
Yeah, and that's great. I wish they would start something in my state like that, because that's what needs to happen. Like, I guarantee you'll see a drop in that. But it's a trap. Somebody in the live chat said it's a poor person's trap, and that's absolutely true. And a lot of times it goes like, if these people had somebody in their life, like, you don't know how many times I've seen people that were in there. One bunkmate that I had was never got one letter from anyone, and that's a big deal. Like, when mail call comes around every day, everybody's that's the most looked forward to event while you're in there, is getting mail. And
Yeah.
this guy never got one thing, and he doesn't have a support system outside of prison, and I think that goes a long way. And there are so many different philanthropies and charities that do things like, there is a service where you can actually sign up, and they will give you the name and address of a prisoner that doesn't get any mail, and you can set up almost like a pen pal, where you write that person. And I'm telling you, look into that if you have the time, because that could be the difference in really making someone's, like you have no idea the impact that doing something like that, just a quick letter once a week, and letting somebody know that you've got their back, and that you believe in them, and that they can do better when they get out. That could change somebody's life in an amazing way. And so I do that, and I think that if you have the time, people should definitely look into that. There's also a organization that takes books. So if you have any books that you want to donate, they'll send you a shipping thing. You put the books in and you send it to them, and they provide books for these prisons so people can read. There's all sorts of things that
there's a guy that does that out of New York. He was illiterate before he went into prison, and he learned how to read while he was in prison, and now he collects books and brings them to prisoners all over the country.
Yeah, see, like you can literally people all the time. I'll tell you this: people all the time comment about the graphics that I do, like the thumbnails, the things on the screen.
Yeah.
I learned that while I was locked up. I had my brother send me textbooks on graphic design, and that's how I spent my time. I would get a book, every 3 weeks, and just sit down and read it and sketch out things in a notebook. I've still got the notebook where I sketched out, things as I was learning. I didn't know how to do any of that before I went in. And just because I didn't have a computer there to practice with. Katie?
You're chopping out.
Live chat, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
You both sound fine at this point.
Yeah, maybe just a little glitch
there, I think, for both of us. I don't know.
No. So yeah, I taught myself how to do that on while being on the inside. So
that's so cool. Your graphics are always amazing.
Thank you. So yeah. Okay, there's my little soapbox thing for prison.
I know that was like a little detour, but that's fun. I love it when you get talking, because you never you barely show your little sides.
Yeah,
it's funny because Kyle, when my readers or people that follow my channel, they're always just like, is Kyle as cool as he seems on the show? And I'm like, he's even cooler. You have no idea. So I love it when you show that kind of stuff. Then they don't always see.
Yeah, everybody says that. It was a funny thing at Faithless Forum. By the end of the the third day we were there, somebody said, I expected you to be cool, but I didn't know you were going to be this cool. And I was like,
yeah.
All right.
Cool. You're just a little bit different off camera than you are on camera.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I try not to be too different, but I can definitely let myself. I try to have some level of professionalism on here, but when I'm off camera,
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I'm
Is like
goofy.
I'm a little bit different on camera than I am off camera as well. But
Yeah.
how we talk off camera is not the same. So that's always like why I'm like he's even cooler.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So yeah, if you, and I'll tell you what, if you're watching this later on, I will link those charities in the description. So if you do have the time, I'm telling you, you don't understand the impact that will have and how that can change somebody's life. Just writing a few words on a piece of paper and sending that in can be the difference between somebody feeling like they have a reason and a motivation to change their entire life, or somebody just, why bother? It can make a difference. So if you have time to do that, please do that. And it doesn't cost anything. So it's just a couple minutes a day or a week. Okay. Last story. Now, Alabama, get your shit together, because not only are you embroiled in a abortion, it's like this. It's like every state in the union said, you know what? We're going to start migrating towards progress. We're going to change some things. We're going to go towards the way society should be. And it's like Alabama said, hold my beer, and was just like,
I know.
We're
Alabama's
going,
gone so far to the right that like even the Republicans are like, ooh.
yeah, exactly. This is just I mean, Alabama, look, listen, you were on the wrong side of history during the civil rights. And we saw that. And I think you see that. As a state, you have to look in the mirror, and the way that you handled things in Birmingham, in Mobile, in Selma, all of those instances, you fucked up. Now you have a chance to change that, and you want to double down on stupid.
Yeah. I know, and they just like they passed the whole abortion thing, and then like earlier this week they just like couldn't pass and like decline funding for healthcare and education, and they are already like in the United States the 49th worst state to live in.
What's the 50th?
Like they're the second worst state to live in. So they rank 49 out of 50 states.
What's the 50th?
What's 50?
I don't know. I just know that like they're really bad in public health. They're terrible in education. They're horrible in like public welfare. So that was the whole thing. That was the huge argument by so many people on the abortion side. It was like, so you force people to have pregnancies that they don't want, but you don't have any infrastructure within your government to like deal with the amount of kids that would be coming in. Your education is piss poor, and there's zero public health. Good on you.
Alabama, you're the new Florida. Congratulations.
Right. Serious.
I'm telling you, like it's just like the thing that I don't get is if and I'm gonna read this article here in just a second, but I go back to the civil rights thing. You had so many blunders, and history looks so poorly at you that it seems like you would be looking for an opportunity to show that, we're not always going to be on the wrong side of history. We're not always going to seem like we're resisting giving people their freedom and not discriminating against them for bullshit reasons. But you fucking double down on it every single time you get the chance. And I don't understand it. Like, I feel like all the other states need to have an intervention with you before we vote you off the island. I mean, come on, Alabama. Anyway,
I think before we vote them off the island, can we just go take Godless Engineer and KC and just move them out?
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll definitely keep it. Yeah, we'll definitely keep them. The article says Alabama's at it again. According to a report from AL.com, Alabama Public Television chose not to broadcast the season 22 premiere of Arthur, which included the same-sex wedding of beloved elementary school teacher Mr. Ratburn. Rather than airing the episode as scheduled, APT Director of Programming Mike McKenzie opted to show a rerun from a previous season. Parents have trusted Alabama Public Television for more than, let me read this I think he would. Parents have trusted Alabama Public Television for more than 50 years to provide children programs that entertain, educate, and inspire. More importantly, although we strongly encourage parents to watch television with their children and talk about what they have learned afterwards, parents trust that their children can watch APT without their supervision. We also know that children who are younger than the target audience for author also watch the program. As AL points out, this isn't the first instance of APT taking a stand against the Arthurverse. In 2005, it chose not to air an episode of Arthur's spinoff, Postcards from Buster, which included several children with lesbian moms. Oh, Alabama.
I hate Alabama. Can we just?
Well, what I guess my question is, what is the point? There are people with lesbian moms and gay dads in Alabama public schools. It's not like these children are not already exposed to the topic.
It's a cartoon. It's a fucking cartoon. And cartoons like this and shows like this are important. Like, I don't think people understand the impact that having gay characters in shows did for the gay rights movement in terms of leading up to the passing of equal marriage laws. When you have a show that you like and that show contains characters that are gay, that humanizes them with people who wouldn't necessarily in other instances be sort of welcoming to that. I know that Modern Family did amazing things with pushing this along.
Well, yeah, and it also helps, like, think of it for, like, my son who's extremely isolated. We don't get out very much, so having those kind of characters are very important for his development so that he can see that and understand that, because even though we preach, like, love and acceptance, and we have a pride flag that hangs out in our house, and we always talk, like, about how, people can just love people, for him to see it is so important for him to, like, be like, oh, that's okay, because he doesn't get out of the house very much, so these kinds of messages are extremely important.
Right. I completely agree. And it went a long way to help in that, because that with that President Obama coming out and supporting things like that, there was a lot of momentum there. And like him or hate him, I know a lot of people have hate for Obama, but I will always be grateful to him for what he did.
I've had some words with people that watch NonSequitur about Obama, but I'm going to be honest, like, his passage of the ACA changed my son's life. And some people will argue that it's not enough, but for someone like my son, for what that accomplished and the fact that it was able to be passed when nothing had been passed before, and the fact that they got rid of some really important things like pre-existing conditions and expanding the Medicaid, like, my son's life is going to be so much better because of that. And I don't know. I don't subscribe to this, the whole, like, he didn't get out of the wars and this and that. Like, being a president is so much more complicated than it is to be a armchair president or an armchair quarterback, and like criticize what it is that they do. Like, with Trump, I can just say everything he does is stupid, but it's because he's Trump.
Yeah. Someone in the live chat says it's okay to be against same-sex couples from adopting. You're right. It's completely legal and okay to be a douchebag. You have every right, Arnold Lane, to be a complete asshole.
Did someone seriously say that in your chat?
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, like, no, he's right. He's right. It's completely fine for someone to be a dickhead. That's
a bigot. A bigot.
Yeah.
Because they've done so many studies now that debunk this idea that children are less, evolved, and that this whole idea that you have to have two genders, like, children just fundamentally need love and stability.
Absolutely.
Because when you talk about having to have, like, a man and a woman in, like, a child's life, that totally degrades, like, the single mom who didn't have a choice, or the single father that didn't have a choice. or the two fathers that want that baby, or the two mothers that are raising the child. There's so many different kinds of families.
Mhm.
And so many children that are in the foster care system that need homes.
Mhm. Yep. And they don't think about that. It's just
No.
they're gay. Gay people don't need no kids. What happens? These are always statements by someone who is highly uneducated,
Yeah.
ignorant, and bigoted. And in this country, you have absolutely every right to be an uneducated bigot, and no one can stop you from that. I choose not to live my life uneducated and a dickhead. But hey,
Yeah.
somebody's complete right to do
I
that.
just try not to be a cunt sandwich. And if they want to be a cunt sandwich, that's fine with me.
Yep. I like that. So yeah, you can Alabama, please get your shit together. Come on, Alabama.
Seriously. We're just gonna
All right.
annex you from the
Yeah, somebody
said
tag out Alabama, tag in Puerto Rico.
also somebody asked me
Puerto
earlier,
Ricans now, man, they're awesome. Like one of my closest friend is Puerto Rican. She's amazing.
Somebody in the chat asked me what gang I was in while I was on the inside. I was part of the Rainbow Golfers.
You guys, today when that's such an inside joke, because today when we were talking about what we were gonna do for the show tonight, he's all like, I was like, what are we gonna cover? And he's like, Rainbow Gophers. And I'm so gullible. And I was like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah, she's like, do you have a link? well, first you asked what's a rainbow gopher, and I said homosexual gophers. That she said, oh, that's awesome. Let's do it. Do you have a link? And I was like, I was not expecting that. I would
so do a show on homosexual gophers. Do you remember the Parks and Rec? Like they married Leslie Knope married like gay penguins.
No, I haven't seen that. No.
Oh, because like there is homosexuality in like the natural world. There's actually monkeys or gorillas. I'm sorry, gorilla families that are like they're like the Bobos or something, and they will literally have sex with whatever. Like they're this hypersexual like species of gorillas, I think. And they're homosexual. They don't care.
Yeah.
So
go tell them about your God and see what happens. We'll rip your face off.
Yeah. But I thought, like, God, that would be so cool if gophers were totally gay.
Yeah, not so much.
Because I live in the gopher state. Like that's the Minnesota Gophers, like
there's a in Alabama in Alabama. Okay. I went to Godless Engineer. Everybody knows I married Godless Engineer and KC, and I went to Alabama, and at the hotel we were staying at, there's this like shopping center that is like off to the side of it with all these outside shops. Beautiful place. And I was walking through there, and there's this place called so everybody in Alabama or in this city that I was in with them got to vote on the baseball team's mascot. Right? That you could submit a name, and then online people could see the names that are submitted, and people could vote. Now, this is the team that they voted on. The Trash Pandas. Now, a trash panda is a raccoon, of course, but there was this store there. It was like Trash Panda, and I was like, what? And yes, there's literally, that's the name of their baseball team. It's a panda in a trash can. I mean, a raccoon in a trash can. It's hilarious. Yeah. Okay, so I figured tonight I want to talk about something. I saw this first in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and Saul's brother is an individual that he suffers from EMF sensitivity. Now, in the show, In the show, you saw that he couldn't leave the house. You had to leave all of your electronics in the mailbox when you came in. He had foil tarps stapled all inside the house and slept under a foil blanket. And anytime he would go outside or to the business that he would run, they would get a call that he was coming. They would kill the power to the place, and it would be completely dark when he went into the office. You couldn't have any cell phones around. And so I was watching an episode of that last night, and that got me thinking. I was like, that would be a fascinating thing to sort of talk about and dive into. And oddly enough, there are a number of people that claim to suffer from EMF sensitivity or Wi-Fi allergies. That's the term that is used. The symptoms here are when you're exposed to power lines, television sets, computers, cell phones, smart meters, Wi-Fi. The symptoms include fatigue, headache, tingling, dizziness, chest pain, nausea, skin sensitivity, eye irritation, muscle aches, chronic fatigue, memory loss, and confusion. Now, there's a website that sort of centers around this phenomenon, and it says that if the symptoms are not treated, I lost my place. Okay, so if you show these symptoms and it's around things that are electronic, this website says that a lot of clinics in the world recognize and treat this phenomenon. The confirmation of the effect of electromagnetic energy was established in a double-blind study in 1991 by Dr. William Ray. The study consisted of 4 phases to ensure accuracy of data. The first phase determined that EMF would not interfere with the test. Second phase was the study involved 100 patients who complained of the sensitivity. This led to 5 blank challenges. The phase revealed that 25 patients who were sensitive to the fields, but not the blanks. In the third phase, these 25 proven EMF patients were compared to 25 healthy volunteer controls in a double-blind study. None of the volunteers reacted to any of the change, and blah, 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 blah. Now, this is something that was later shown to be false, and there is no solid scientific basis for EMF. I'm going to go to the WHO organization, and then I'm going to let Katie speak on it. The World Health Organization. Now, according to the World Health Organization, there have been an unprecedented increase in the number and diversity of electromagnetic field sources. These sources include video display units, computers, mobile phones, base stations. For some time, a number of individuals who have reported a variety of health problems that relate to exposure to EMF. While some individuals report mild symptoms and react by avoiding these fields the best they can, others are so severely affected that they cease work and change their lives entirely. This sensitivity to EMF has been generally termed electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or EHS. Now, according to the World Health Organization, their conclusion is this: EHS is characterized by a variety of nonspecific symptoms that differ from individual to individual. The symptoms are certainly real and can vary wildly in their severity. Whatever its cause, EHS can be a disabling problem for the affected individual. EHS has no clear diagnostic criteria, and there is no specific basis to link EHS symptoms to EMF exposure. Further, EHS is not a medical diagnosis, nor is it clear that it represents a single medical problem. So what they're basically saying is, although these symptoms and the things that the people who are complaining of EHS are real, and they really are experiencing these things, the cause of the symptoms is not due to what they think it is. It's not due to them being exposed to Wi-Fi or EMF. That's simply not the case. Now, the issue here is that you have people online, quack doctors, people who are telling people that this is a real thing. When they go to these people, there is confirmation bias. They're getting confirmed that, yes, you should avoid these things. And Katie, I'm going to let you speak to that. And then I'm going to tell you the real world cost of these quack doctors and what happens when this goes undiagnosed.
Can I add something real quick before you go, Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked up on the Food and Drug Administration because the last time I remember even thinking an electronic device was dangerous was when I was little, and it was the TV and X-ray. So the FDA says it should be emphasized that most TV sets have not been found to give off any measurable level of radiation, and there is no evidence that radiation from TV sets has resulted in human injury. And that's TV sets, and we're talking about hard X-rays back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So everything since then, particularly in the United States, has had a massive amount of radiation shielding to comply with the FCC rule.
Mm-hmm.
In consumer electronics. So,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're not receiving anything close to something that would affect you.
Sure.
No, and it's this like hyper like exploitation by the charlatans that are selling this as a diagnosis, and they're saying, "Oh, it's this," so people are going on to Dr. Google and they're putting in their symptoms. The problem with their symptoms is they're very vague. Headaches, nausea, itchy skin. I mean, that could be anything. These are the same people that get diagnosed with chronic Lyme's disease or Mullergrins or whatever it is that the chemtrail people think they have. They're all very nondescript, and they could describe so many different things. The other thing that you'll see with this is that you see this with people that have issues with parasites, and they get this like mental disorder where they're actually like believe that parasites have taken over their body. And it's this perceived idea that something is so dangerous and so toxic to you that you develop symptoms when you're around it because you think it's bad. And it's part of that is mental. And they have shown in some cases that in double-blind studies, and the problem is that the doctors and the quacks, I should say, the quacks that treat this will say that there's been no research that's been done, but there's been so much research on this because of the impacts of all of these different, as technology is added to ensure that they're safe and stuff. And in double-blind studies of people that say that they are hypersensitive to electromagnetic waves, they actually cannot feel the waves any differently than anybody else. And in fact, they would experience symptoms when they weren't exposed and would have zero symptoms when they were, proving that it was like something within the mind. And the issue with the real world consequences is that the quacks are giving them this diagnosis because that's what quacks do, is they give you have chronic Lyme's, it's hypersensitivity to odors, it's chemical sensitivity, it's electromagnetic sensitivity, whatever it is. And it prevents the person from getting treatment for whatever it is that they actually have. It could be a mental illness. It could be, headaches, migraines. It could be something in their head. It could be a tumor. It could be, you just don't know. And if you're looking to people that aren't trained doctors, and the problem is that the quacks will always provide the answer where a medical professional won't, because they can't unless they can go through and run the diagnostics. And it's preventing people from getting actual treatment and actual medical care because they're going to quacks instead.
Mm-hmm. And that has a real world cost. And I'm going to talk about now what that cost is. Last week, several readers tweeted. This is a person from sciencebasedmedicine.org writing. So he's writing in how he would speak. But it says last week, readers either tweeted at me or sent me links to what can only be described as an incredibly tragic story of how belief in EHS can impact a real person. It's a story that started popping up in the UK,
Yeah.
in the UK press Thanksgiving week and continued into last week about the inquest investigating the death of a 15-year-old girl named Jenny Fry from the rural village of Chadlington in Oxfordshire, whose body was found hanging from a tree in June. The thing about this that is so tragic is that Jenny was someone who claimed to have suffered from electro-hypersensitivity. She let it drive her to the point of suicide. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 other cases just linked in this article of people committing suicide due to the belief that they have this this disease and cannot cure it. Now, here's Jenny's story. Let me read Jenny's story. She claimed to have been suffering from electro-hypersensitivity that made her life miserable, according to the Daily Mail. According to Fry's parents, Deborah and Charles, the teen began to show signs of the illness 3 years ago when she would often get tired, endure headaches, and have bladder problems. Fry's parents removed Wi-Fi from their home after she became ill, but her symptoms would return while attending classes at Chipping Norton School because they would often use Wi-Fi. Her mother said, Jenny was getting ill and so was I. I did some research and found how dangerous Wi-Fi could be, so I had it taken out of the home. Both Jenny and I were fine, but Jenny continued to be ill in certain areas. Now, this is a case of the mother having convinced herself that this is a thing too. So
unfortunately, that's not uncommon. These are the same mothers that also believe they have chronic Lyme disease, and then they believe their kids have chronic Lyme, or they've passed it on because some quack says that they have it.
Hold on one second, Katie. My computer was about to die on me. I had to plug it up.
Look it up. Look it up. That sounds so dirty.
Yeah. So, and I say this, and I wanted to bring this up because her symptoms that she was having, which was the fatigue, bladder problems, headaches, that could be attributed to a number of things. It could be an environmental problem with something at the home. Maybe there's, a mold issue or something like that. It could be a case of her suffering from any number of things. I mean, you could just plug that into WebMD and get a number of things. But she should have went to an actual doctor. She should have been taken to an actual medical doctor to get diagnosed. And because she didn't, and because the parents in this case enabled that that delusion by taking the Wi-Fi out of the house, by why in the world wouldn't, if your daughter is suffering from these problems, take them to a physician where this could be treated? And the poor girl was so distraught and couldn't take it anymore that she hung herself from a tree. That is tragic.
That is so sad. Yeah.
And so according to Wikipedia, electromagnetic hypersensitivity is not an accepted diagnosis. Medically, there is no case definition or clinical practice guidelines, and there is no specific test to identify it, nor is there an agreed upon definition with which to conduct this clinical research. And that, as we've already said, is because of the fact that every individual that complains to be suffering from this shows signs that are different from the another case. They're all different. They all complain of different things. Some may feel headaches, some may feel dizziness, while the other person has, like in the last case, bladder control. that sort of thing. So because the symptoms are so widespread and varying, you cannot diagnose this as any sort of reaction to EMF. And
Yeah, there's no condition that would have that widespread of symptoms. Like, it just doesn't work like that.
right. And there's a lot of things in the news now, or a lot of stories circulating the internet in the fake news corners of the internet about 5G. Have you heard about this, Katie?
Oh yeah.
What have you heard about the 5G
So
pandemic?
people literally are afraid of 5G. They think it's like causes cancer. They think it's like excess radiation. They think it causes men to be sterile. I mean, there's so many like ridiculous things about 5G. It's 5G is like the new microwave.
Basically, basically the issue is that let me read this. Ever since companies started rolling out 5G, the public reception towards it was not ideal. There are many allegations that came in 5G's way, some even stating that a 5G network test caused the death of 100 birds in the Netherlands. Later, that was determined to be a hoax article. So are there any 5G health risks to talk about? The reason many people are condemning 5G is the result of extremely high frequencies that use between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz. Due to the high frequency characteristics, the waves do not travel vast distances like 4G. Hence, antennas must be erected closer to each other to provide clear 5G reception. So essentially, there's going to be exponentially more towers that need to be put up in order to carry this signal across. So this then says that according to this article, there are over 215 scientists from 40 different countries that have appealed to the United Nations for urgent reaction to reduce the EMF field exposure from these wireless sources. These scientists also submitted a letter to the FCC asking the body to consider health risks and environmental issues before rapidly deploying fifth-generation wireless infrastructures. All of these scientists have conducted EMF studies and published their results in peer-reviewed journals that show the adverse biological effects caused through EMF sources developed by humans.
So from what I was understanding, I'm sorry, just from what I was understanding when I was reading Science-Based Med as well, that same article that you were, and I love that website for viewers that have questions about different scientific concepts or pseudoscience. There's two websites that I love to use, Science-Based Med and Quackwatch. I feel like both of them make it easy for people like me who doesn't understand science very well to understand. But what I thought was interesting was that there's such paranoia about these that it causes you to have like an effect where you feel like you're having symptoms when you wouldn't normally because you're so scared of it.
Yeah. And to that last point, that last thing I was reading, some members of Congress are demanding proof that the new technology will be safe, and some health advocates are calling for a moratorium on the rollout of 5G technology. But science is unlikely to agree in their reasoning. The question of the safety of exposure to radio frequency emissions from cell phones have been marked by confusion and disputed since the issues first arose in the mid-1990s. Let me get to my next point here. Let's see. Now, according to this, it says that the chief criticisms of this whole thing include the following: the number of excess tumors could be due to chance. The possibility is increased due to the fact that they were not seen in. They're basically talking about a study where someone tried to say that this was causing more tumors to increase, and they're refuting that point that this could be due to a number of different reasons, not just 5G. There's no clear science on 5G being any more dangerous than the 4G that we're on now. It's just it's a hype. People like we had Rand Campbell on here about a month ago, and telling us that 5G was there was somebody that went missing, and they sent that person, or that person wasn't really missing. The government had them, but they floated the story nationally to take away from people paying attention to the 5G towers going up. Like,
they always do that. I know.
No one wanted anybody to comment on the.
Yeah, I'm in a Facebook page where it's like literally people are terrified of 5G. It's insane, the things that they think that 5G causes. And I feel like anytime new technology, no matter what it is, we are always afraid. And I actually spoke to this really very interesting psychologist that has studied extensively the whole like correlation of video games and violence. And there's like zero, it doesn't actually make our kids more violent. But he was the psychologist, who's a professor at a place down in Florida, was basically explaining it's this whole fear of the unknown and this fear of like technology passing us up as we age. And it's different than what we can understand. And as the world keeps passing us by, we become more and more resistant to the things that are new, and we're afraid of what we don't know. And so it creates this massive paranoia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And the study, there was a study from Ramazzini Institute that let's see, I'm trying to get to the bottom line here. 1 second. Many studies have looked into the radio frequency of EMF and how it can affect healthy people. A literature review both summarized the lack of findings on this topic. In 2011, the World Health Organization declared cell phones as a Class 2B carcinogen, meaning that the technology could be linked to cancer. This does not instantly imply the level of exposure from commercial products is dangerous. Other Class 2B carcinogens include pickles, aloe leaf vera extract, and being a firefighter. So
pickles.
There's
pickles.
Yeah. There's pickles. That's so funny. That's so random. So EMF is about as harmful to you as a pickle is. Now, if you're Mr. Atheist, that means that you can't come anywhere near 5G, because I've never seen somebody more frightened of an object than Jimmy is pickles, and it's hilarious.
Are you serious? It's so
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
I love pickles.
Yeah. It's hilarious. I do too. I like bread and butter pickles. The sweet ones.
My mom, when I was growing up, always made them. They're so good. I love them when they're fresh.
Yes. I agree. All right, guys, we're going to open the calls right now as soon as I log in here, and you can give us a call.
I just want to say that someone in your chat said I was hot, and I just wanted to say thank you.
There's been a couple of them actually that said that.
It's my makeup tonight.
You can give us a call at 1-313-NonSec1 or 1-313-666-7371. The number is on the screen there as well. If you have a question for Katie and I, and we will be happy to answer maybe 2 or 3 of these, depending on how long they go. So you can give us a call. Number's on the screen. And until we get a call, we'll just sit here in awkward silence and wait on you.
Awkward silence. We should sing the Morgan and Paul song.
It's the Kyle and Katie.
The Kyle and Katie show.
I could start Pressure Gradient if you want me to, Kyle.
I am obsessed with Morgan and Paul now, you guys.
I saw that. Do you think Paul's gay?
Oh God, yeah. And
I think so
I'm
too.
obsessed with Girl. I am so obsessed with Girl Defined. And it's funny because I stumbled on them by accident because I'm like on this like big like crazy Christian kick right now. And I did a show on them and everyone's like, "Oh, Mr. Atheist covers them all the time." And I was like, "What? I didn't know that." I was like, "I just found them by going Christian dating advice."
Yeah, Mr. Atheist, those are the people that he mainly deals with. All of his videos are.
I wrote an article about them yesterday and it got a lot of views, a ton of views. I realized not a lot of people are writing about them, so I'm gonna add them to my repertoire.
Yeah. I think they're, to me, like they're so cheesy that it just gives me the cringe. Like the things that they talk about, and like you can just look at them and tell they're full of it when they say, what's the number one thing you look for in a soulmate? Well, her obedience and her faithfulness to God, and it's just like, oh no, it's not. Shut up.
Oh my God. And her Bethany is like 30 years old, just got married. She literally acts like she's 12 because she's so stunted emotionally.
Yep.
Like, and oh my God. And her husband, I am pretty sure went through gay conversion therapy. He is like so gay.
Do you who's the girl that talks very like a child almost?
Bethany.
That's her. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of this, like, how much of that is like really them. Like, if you see them in real life or you hang out with them in real life, how much of them is really doing
She has
and acting?
she has a channel just with her husband, and she is even more immature with him. So I think it's just her, to be honest. She didn't leave her house until she was 30 years old. Imagine how stunted you would be if you grew up in a family where like you were told like you're never leaving until you get married, you're not going to kiss, you're not going to do anything. Like that messes with your emotional maturity.
Yeah. Try to call in, but the buttons on the screen aren't working. What do you mean? The buttons on the screen aren't working.
I think
weird.
he's referring to the YouTube screen.
Oh, Dave. Oh. It says somebody's on. Mute, return to queue, drop. That's a weird number. Oh, that's the Skype number. Okay, I got it now. Well, nobody's calling in, so I guess, unless you have anything else, Katie, no one has any questions. No one wants to talk to us.
If you guys haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you do. And someone was asking if that's my dog in the background. It's a dog toy.
Oh.
My dogs are not in the room. They're, huh?
I want a raccoon, like a baby raccoon.
God.
I was watching some
Dogs are
videos on YouTube that they're the cutest little things. The ones that live in, there's a video on YouTube where this raccoon's sitting at a table and he's eating grapes. Like he's literally holding a group of grapes and he's picking them off and just shoving them in his mouth. It's so. Dave, can you find that video? We'll end with a happy video of a raccoon eating grapes.
Raccoon eating grapes. Looking.
Yeah. And while you find that, there is one person calling in, so we'll take this call.
Their dogs. My dogs were being jerk faces in the beginning of the stream. Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's okay.
I have two hound dogs that they chase raccoons. They're coon hounds.
Oh, what's their names?
Sweetie and Frida.
Frida, I like that.
They're nuts. Yeah, she's named after Frida Kahlo, my favorite painter.
Okay, let's see who we have. This says on their screening thing, Strainers Long. Strainers Long.
Hello. Stringer News 1.
What was that?
Stringer News 1. I'm in the chat.
Stringer News. Okay.
Oh.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Doing great.
Yeah. I've been in broadcasting and studied electrical engineering, so I kind of have an interest in this, and thought I could talk a little bit about it.
Sure. What would you like to add?
Well, I've had some interest in it. I was in broadcasting in Chicago, and they had a special on EMFs by the NBC affiliate there, and it's been an issue for a while. And when cell phones came out, there was a scare about those causing problems, and we had. We didn't have really studies, but the Chicago police used 5-watt radios with the antennas that were mounted up on their lapels. So they transmitted at 5 watts and used those all the time. There was no history of anybody ever getting cancer from those things. And so we have this long history of using radio waves. People have said that these things are going to make you sick. They're going to give you cancer. Your ears are going to fall off and all that. So far, nothing.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's something new that's coming out. And like Katie said, anytime that happens or they jump frequencies and people can sort of point to that as a means for describing some kind of issue, there's a certain group of people that are going to make issues of this. And I was saying this last night. The biggest problem that I have is that people are moving away from any types of actual science, any types of actual information, any type of medical, actual medical professionals, and they're content in getting their information from people online that have no background in any of this stuff, have no expertise in any of this stuff, don't have the credentials to speak on it, but because it sounds good and it sounds like there could be something to it, they harbor to, like with anti-vaxxing, flat Earth, all of these, Jilly Juice, the Danny Glass. People are turning to these people who have no background in anything and taking their advice when they need to be evaluated by medical professionals. And I don't understand why those trends are rising, but they are.
Yeah, I think people prefer to, use non-authoritative sources that they believe that they can trust over, more vetted sources, because I don't know, I think there's a kind of a counterculture reaction to it. They think, you can't trust the experts because they have a vested interest. They have a profit motive or something. But the people that work with this stuff, they know what they're doing. They actually have figured out what power levels are dangerous, and they work hard to avoid them. I know, we had transmitters on the Hancock building and on the Sears Tower, and the power up there was dangerous, and so people weren't allowed up on the roofs of those buildings until they shut down the transmitters to do maintenance. And because the RF levels were very high up there, that was a precaution that we took. But people down on the street didn't see the same power levels, of course.
Yeah.
And near cell phone towers too, the tower workers on those things, they don't actually get up on the hoists until those things are shut off.
Right.
Because cell phone towers can they can cause men to go sterile, I think, right? If they are on them or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that your average cell phone transmitter is about 250 watts or so. You get up close, you might get RF burns from it. I don't know what would happen if you get it real close to your junk, but it probably wouldn't be pleasant.
Yeah,
a lot of it depends on the gain added by the antenna and so forth. I had one colleague who was working on one of the towers at the John Hancock Center, and all the transmitters were supposed to be down, and somebody turned on the WXRT, which is a radio station transmitter, which was 5,000 watts, right when he was there at the antenna, and he got bad RF burns.
Really?
He almost off. And eventually he got cancer. And so you can really get hurt by RF energy in massive doses, real close up. But that was 5,000 watts right at the antenna.
Yeah, well, but think
Well,
about it.
yeah, and I know.
Think
really
about it
the
from a practical standpoint. Like if you're a company that are like putting up these towers to get 5G everywhere, why would you kill or put it up there that could be harmful to people because you want more customers, right? What would be the sense of putting these things up if it was going to, kill a mass amount of individuals and it just doesn't make sense from a practical standpoint. Like I don't understand.
They love to buy in. They love to buy into the conspiracy. That's like part of it, like that whole conspiracy.
Yeah, and with the caller here, I'm an electrical engineer of sorts too. I'm computer engineering, so electronics. You go through electrical engineering. This is why antennas for radio stations and TV stations and cell phones have fences at the bottom that you're not allowed to go into. They're usually of a certain size, depending on the strength of the transmitter that you're dealing with, to prevent people from going in there where it could affect them. That's the area where it's affected.
I just feel like people think the tiny amount of radiation or whatever that they're getting from this, they equate it to like being in an X-ray or being in a magnetic, like CT scan. Like my son has multiple illnesses where he has to get scans all the time. And we always have to debate whether or not we're going to go CT or MRI because the CT has more radiation in it, but it does better. It scans his brain better for his ventricles than the MRI does. And you have those are things like as a parent, I have to actually weigh, and that's way different than like 5G,
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a difference between ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation, and it has to do with the electron volt level. And how much energy is lost. It gets into the physics of it. And I am kind of far away from that in my education, so I can't give you a succinct definition. But essentially, your radio waves do not give out ionizing radiation. They're on the bottom side of visible light, whereas X-rays are above visible light. And so they tend to be always ionizing, whereas everything below visible light is not ionizing in frequency. So there's different things. So for example, the vacuum tubes in the transmitters would operate at very high levels, and if they would arc, they could give out X-rays, ionizing radiation, because of the way they worked. So we had to take precautions about that. Because they operate at very high voltage levels.
Electrons traveling at light speed in a vacuum, basically.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the call. We're going to move to the next caller so that we can try to fit everybody in before we close out. But thank you very much. That was a good call.
You got more calls? Great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. I think Jamie Craig.
I'll be right back.
Hello?
Okay. Jamie Craig?
Yeah, it's JC.
Okay. Hey, JC.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. What about you?
So, no, it was just I'm all right. Just another day in the universe.
Heard that.
No, I was listening in on you guys and how you were talking about more or less how a majority of this is all, how people are afraid of technology and becoming more afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not any expert on this at all. This is just an opinion, but I would factor in a lot of that due to economic problems along with education. Because especially when you factor in, a lot of people, especially now in the United States, are finding it harder and harder to get into education. It's like I would say about 4 years ago, I tried to get an education, a higher one, and I ended up getting scammed by an education facility that was a for-profit. And so I essentially, even though I graduated from it, had a degree that was essentially worthless. But the point is that with
JC.
lower education comes more susceptibility with
JC.
basically
Casey
conspiracy theories.
want to know what school.
Hello?
Katie wanted to know what school.
Hello?
Hey,
I
Katie
couldn't
wanted
hear
to know
you.
what school. You can't hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, Katie wants to know what school.
I went to University of Phoenix, sadly.
Oh, okay. I worked for another for-profit for many years and left because I was tired of, tricking people.
Well, it was a scam school. I mean, basically, the degree I got from it was absolutely worthless.
Yeah, no,
Gotcha.
I worked for Capella.
It's
They're
pretty much
competitive.
you walk into any kind of job stating, oh, well, I have the bachelor's degree in health administration, and it's pretty much, oh, where did you get it from? University of Phoenix. That's when I would hear a roar of laughter.
Oh man, I'm
And
sorry
it's
about that.
and it's super expensive.
Oh, no, you don't need to be sorry about that. Because the issue is I'm an extremely poor person. I don't make a terrible amount, and essentially I joined up with that school out of desperation because I wanted out of poverty, and the way I thought I could get out of poverty was through an education. So I bit down on that because of my desire to get out, and
it's awful.
they got taken advantage of.
For-profit schools hold like more than 50% of all of the student loan debt in the nation. Of over the $1 trillion that is in debt is owned by for-profit schools.
We need to do a show on that.
And that's the thing. I mean, now I'm $50,000 in debt, and I couldn't even begin to pay it off because I barely make above $20,000. So.
And they pray.
Do you have any recourse?
But that's not that's not the topic at hand, though. That's a completely different situation. The one is basically where also economic factors can bring in with it. It's like in my case, poverty can also bring about more fear of the advancements of technology. I mean, look at if you want to look at it, a flat earther, for instance, most of them tend to be of no to very little education, or education that they would assume makes them an expert in a certain field where they have no expertise in.
Sure, you're exactly right. I think you're dead on, and that very much I cannot talk tonight. That very well may have a huge influence in sort of the aversion to this. I think you're right.
Well, I mean, because if you look at like inside your guys' chat, there's a lot of those discussions going on, especially during debates and such, where the person that is debating, which in most cases, like let's say Fouquet or breaking down the wall of stupidity or whatever his name is, and all of that, their arguments come from complete blissful ignorance due to the fact that they don't understand any of the concepts that are given to them. Even I don't understand the concepts, and I don't claim to, but I can already tell you that even with a poor education from myself, I already know from the fact that I try to educate all the time through books and other sorts of materials that I can get my hands on that are peer-reviewed and scientifically peer-reviewed. I may not understand the equations, but I do understand the premise.
Sure.
Which is we don't live on a flat pizza pan in the middle of Domino's.
Although that would be awesome.
I still think we live in a donut.
It would probably smell a lot better. I mean, I kind of like that better than being a footstool to some dude with athlete's foot. But
yeah, very, very true. I tell you what, JC, why don't you email me at my email address is live@nonsectshow.com, and let's schedule you up so that you can actually join us for a full one of these, and we can go through for-profit education schools, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I worked for one for 12 years, Kyle.
See, perfect. So we can get that side of it, and then we get your side of it for
Capella.
For who?
Capella
University.
Oh, okay.
They're like
so
one of the largest
in this
ones.
case, live at NonSec.
Yeah, NonSeq show.com, and we'll maybe next week we'll do one of these and talk about the for-profit education system. I think that's a very interesting subject, and one that needs to be talked about.
Oh yeah, no problem. I know you got other callers on the line, so I won't take up any more time.
Well, I appreciate it. Give me an email and we'll set that up for next week.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, JC.
All right, man. All right. See you guys later. Have a good night.
See ya. Thank you. We'll take one more. Let's take one more call, and it just says auto screen failed. Who are we talking to here?
Hi, this is Andrew or Andrea or whatever you want to pronounce my name.
What is your name?
Hi.
It's hard to
Andrew,
hear
if you
you.
want. Andrew, I prefer to pronounce it, but some English speakers have trouble with that. But whatever.
It's hard to hear you. Are you talking in a tunnel?
Okay. Well, my audio sucks. But
I can't understand a word you're saying, man.
I'm afraid you can.
I can't.
What? Is it better?
No.
No.
You're really like.
Okay, I think that.
It's really distorted. It's like coming through like you're
maybe
got
call
the
us
mic
back
too close.
tomorrow, because you're very spaced out. Like I can't understand a word you're saying. So let's take this. We got one more caller on the line. Let's take this one last call, and then we'll say goodnight to everyone. All right, who are we speaking with?
Hey, this is Charlie. Go by Random Explorer in your chats.
Oh, hey, you're the guy that
hear
works
me?
on.
Hey.
You're the guy that works on towers, right?
Yeah, for a little better than 13 years, I used to climb cell towers and a few military installation towers and things of that nature.
Are you dead yet?
As far as the RF levels go, the cellular side of it, it's not as bad as people think. You can be up there on those sector frames with the active radios and not experience any issues. Now, FM, as the other caller was talking about, that'll definitely cause you some chaos. You got to have them turned down before you can step the first foot onto a tower. I've had people in the past that worked under me that were starting to climb towers and did not know, they didn't recognize what an FM bay looked like. And as they were climbing, they were experiencing the heat that was being generated, because it's basically microwaving you. It's heating you up and everything. All the metal will start getting hot. You'll get hot. You'll start getting disoriented, things of that nature. But cellular doesn't do that to you. It's not tuned up high enough to be that much of a problem. I've actually been on the sectors in front of the antennas briefly. I'm not going to stand there all day in front of it, because then it would be a problem. But to briefly swing around in front of an antenna to get to the other side or something like that was not an issue. And nowadays, what I do is I inspect the installations of AT&T equipment, and that includes all these CRAN sites that they're putting up, which is 5G, on these 30 to 40 foot poles that you're seeing popping up in all the major cities now. It's just these conspiracy nuts just kill me. That's why I can't go on a debate with these people, because I'll lose my mind on them. I can't stand the propaganda that they're putting out there. It kills me.
You said that you inspect the signal towers for AT&T. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The company I work for, we inspect the installations after the crew is done putting up, whether it's LTE related or 5G related. Once they complete their installation, they get in contact with somebody such as myself, and then I have to inspect what they've put up to make sure everything's up to standard and spec and all. Sure. And that's all there is to that.
I get a horrible signal where I am. Can you come inspect my tower, please? And I'm with AT&T.
You probably have Sprint.
I'm just kidding. I think that it's good that I'm glad that you called in, because it's good to have somebody that actually works with that in their with their career and being around that can that I think that goes a long way in sort of squashing this narrative that you're going to get cooked by 5G towers. This is something new, and people, for whatever reason, just go crazy. So I appreciate you calling in, man. That was
that's all it is. Everybody hates something new, it seems like, and at last check, I do not have cancer, so I'm cancer free.
good deal. All right, Random Explorer, thank you so much for calling in. That was fantastic, and we'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Hey, doggy. Is that Frida?
This is Frida.
Hey, Frida.
She is such
Who's
a
a good
big lap
girl?
dog. Oh my god.
Who's a good girl?
She's like,
Okay.
oh my god, she's such a big baby. She needed some love.
Oh. Do you have anything that you want to say before we close out tonight?
Nope, that was just Frida getting some love from mommy. Make
Hey,
sure if you
Frida.
haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you check me out. And yeah, this was an awesome conversation tonight. We should definitely talk about for-profit stuff, and I'm really grateful to those callers that have experience working in that field called in. That was really insightful.
Absolutely. And we'll do that. We'll do that next week. Let me pull up. I almost forgot super chats. Let me pull those up real quick. I hate Studio Beta. Hate it. Okay, and super chats. Sorry, guys. I should have had this already pulled up, but I didn't. Okay. Tony McDonald sent in 2 super chats with no message. Thank you very much. As did No Name. Thank you. Andre Botella says, are you packing a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to, oh God, call a medic? I'm not sure what that's in reference to, but I was going to say, I'm not going to say that. I still want to be monetized. Batlin Geezer sent in a super chat with no message, and Chris Kellogg or Kelling says, here's a contribution to give everyone a personal mobile Faraday cage. Personal mobile Faraday cage. Thank you. Okay. Well, that's all of us. That's it from all of us here at the Smoking Nun. You can join us tomorrow, where I'll be joined with Shannon Q, and we'll be taking your questions on things. You can call about anything you want and get it answered by somebody who can answer it in a stumbling, bubbling way, or as Shannon can do, someone in an elegant, very, 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 very detailed way. So whichever style you prefer, we've got covered. I tell Shannon's tagline is complex conversations, and
oh God, yeah.
I told her, I said, our show together is what happens when you combine dumpster fire discussions with complex conversations, and you get.
Yeah, I live more on the dumpster fire side of things, and I'm definitely, her brain is amazing.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and I'm very, very, very happy to be talking about that tomorrow. Oh yes, JC, I did get your email. Also, I finally got a hold of the Martha Stewart of marijuana, as she is called. I sent her an email last night, so hopefully in the next couple of days we will be able to work out a date on that. And if you don't know who that is, then just type in Martha Stewart of marijuana. She is she's a PhD, absolutely brilliant, and I'm so excited about the possibility of having her on. Okay. So yeah. And then on Friday we have the free porn. So make sure you join us then. You got a tagline to close us out with, Katie?
I don't know.
I'll take
Kyle and Katie, the Kyle and Katie show.
Perfect. Love it. Good night, everyone.
Good night.